guys in the field who doesn't have one, he slams this thing down. He's like, rubber chicken. And he goes to spin this thing. And in that moment, I was like, wow, it's so interesting. I got a $250 Airbnb gift card. I got a $200 work boot gift card. And this guy wants a $2 rubber chicken. And so it reminded me how important fun is.
Matt, welcome back to the Sideshed podcast.
It's good to be back.
Mate, we had a bit of a technical glitch in the last episode, so we're back doing a re-record, but it's all looking fine right now, so fingers crossed.
I think we got it this time.
Maybe. We'll see. Hopefully we haven't jinxed it. So you were on a recent episode back in episode 383 where we talked about some virtual estimating techniques and things like that. By the way, that was very well received from a lot of our clients in the solar space because pretty close to home with what they do, trying to give those estimates before they go out to site. It's wasting time and stuff like that. For you guys that did miss that, go and check it out. Super valuable, especially if you're in a situation where you're sending sales texts out to jobs to quote on things. It's a really good conversation about how to pre-qualify and make sure you're not wasting time. So that was episode 383. Anyway, today, Matt, we're here to talk about how to hire during a labour shortage. And before we jump into this episode, I might get you to give us a bit of background on this because I know you've certainly got some runs on the board in this space. So fire away.
Yeah, it's funny. We first met on a topic that I don't think I've ever talked about, publicly, which is the virtual. We built that model pre-pandemic, and had it kind of close to our chest. So we started there. And the thing that I always talk about, we're talking about now, which is hiring, how to recruit A players, how to take control of your company, how to motivate this concept of, filling gaps in the company, right? Bringing in the right people and then maximizing their output. How do you get things to become full circle where it's like, I got tons of people, they're doing the right things and they're motivated and maximized in the company. That's where really, the sweet spot is for a lot of business owners when they can find it.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things that's just forever relevant, especially in my own business. Perhaps the reason I had you on this show was selfishly, I don't know, but I'm sure no one else has problems with unproductive team members, right? So anyway, man, I'm keen to hear a little bit about, you obviously you built out a really defined and intricate course on how to find candidates and that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about that journey, how you got to there, what that is.
Yeah, my stuff is interesting because I don't see myself as a coach. I never really set out to consult people. I liked being in my business and kind of just having the freedom to do things the way that I wanted to see them done with the team. And specifically hiring, we've been in the industry for 4 generations. So at this point, 104 years. And it seemed like, it would have been about 5 or 6 years ago, everything I knew that was like my tried and true ways of staffing projects didn't work. And so, we're in this huge growth expansion mode. I'm selling jobs left and right. We're high-fiving at all the sales meetings, $100,000, $300,000. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, we were getting deposit checks. What's that?
Wolf of Wall Street.
It felt like it, it was the pinnacle of the company. It was like we were doing a couple celebrity homes. We were doing some government work, a big government national cemetery. They had a ribbon cutting ceremony. Like I felt like we had made it. And I wasn't paying attention to my team saying, hey, look, we're posting on Craigslist. We're not finding anybody. We're posting on Indeed. I'm like, don't worry about it. We're selling so much. Are you kidding me? The problem was everyone else was selling a lot too. We weren't the only ones. And so it created this huge demand for people. And I got spanked. I got spanked in a big way. I lost about $1 million in the span of 3 weeks. My team had this meeting. Yeah, we had this meeting. I still get tight in my stomach when I talk about it, but they brought me into this meeting because they had been telling me, and finally all my managers, they pull me in, like site superintendent, project manager, ops manager. They're like, you need to come to this meeting. They had all these whiteboards, right? And one whiteboard was like hand-drawn, was all the clients canceling contracts. The other were all the jobs we were going to go over on because we didn't have enough people. The other was liquidated damages on commercial it was like a train with so much momentum, and it's like you got to stop it, and you're going, oh shoot, like it's going to take me a mile before this thing stops. And every foot that this thing goes is just bleeding out. And so, I had probably the lowest point in my business life was leaving that meeting. And it was because I didn't know how to hire. Like I hadn't modernized the hiring side of things. Um, and so I made it my mission in that moment. I said, I'll never ever not know how to hire. And so I just went crazy. I mean, I hired recruiters, I read books, I traveled the country, I hired mentors, and I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think very quickly over 1 million in the course of like a year and a half, just being obsessed with, like, I took every interview, I vetted every recruiter. Like I had assistants, but I was like, I gotta understand how this works because it was like what I called it, the golden prison, because I had millions of dollars of backlog work at 25% net margin, and I couldn't, it was on a wall, and I literally just couldn't get it done. Like I couldn't subcontract it, I couldn't give the jobs away. Like it was the simultaneously the best and worst feeling. And so that sparked a journey, which turned into some things that I had figured out over the course of a few years. I then went on to help people I knew, local contractors that were like, "Hey, Matt, you don't seem as stressed." And I'm like, "No, we've hired 4 or 5 people this week. We hired another 3. We hired another 2, and we're scaling the team and we're hiring the right people." And then so it just evolved. Like people I knew to like trade associations. I was doing presentations. I didn't really know that I had built anything unique until I started going out into the world and showing it and being like, I'd be like, all right, you geofence your competitors, have a career video, incentivize your team, do an honest employee audit. And everyone's looking at me like I got 3 heads. They're like, what is that stuff? And I'm like, well, that's the stuff that works. So that's kind of the
Mm.
long and the short of it. And then we made it into a course. When my wife sat me down and she's like, you can't be like doing coffee dinners for contractors. Like we got a daughter,
Right.
you need to be home. And that was the inspiration for making it a course.
Sure. So talk us through it. What are the different stages, or like how do you want to drive this conversation?
Well, so I think successful hiring, we break it up into 4 parts because I'm not the brightest guy in the world. So if you get
Sure.
6 or 7 steps, you lose me. So how do you find candidates is the first step. How do you build a really big pipeline? Number 2 is how do you vet them? How do you quickly sift, sort, and screen? And what I mean by that is how do you take the good ones and elevate them right to the front of the line? And how do you take the ones that you're questionable about and make sure they're properly vetted? So we had to build this kind of double-sided system. And then how do you hire? Like, I'm going to hire someone. Do I just email them the offer letter? Well, probably not. If in this day and age, if you don't want them, if you don't want them to get a 10% raise where they're at and never leave, you probably want to do it differently. And then how do you retain? How do you make sure that they're going to be here 3, 5, 10 years from now? What does that look like? And, the retention we cover in depth. It's not fully like we don't go into everything. My main thing is like most business owners, if you've got 2 or 3 employees, you have some ability to hire. You just don't have a predictable ability. It's like kind of like saying you've got a project here and a project there. It's like you're building it. You got the core components, but if you can't do it on demand,
Yeah.
there's that feeling of helplessness.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so the big thing we find, like where most people struggle, is on the find section. So we have 37 different ways, proven ways to find candidates, and we built that
Oh,
out.
that's just to find candidates. I thought that was the whole process.
No, that's just 37. It's just how you find them. And then we go into the
Wow.
vetting. There's the informal, formal interview. There's certain questions to ask. There's a skills assessment. I mean, we can cover as much or as little of all these things as you'd like.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think 37 ways to find candidates is definitely interesting. So I think, most people sort of lend themselves to just posting an ad on a job board and then be disappointed when they either don't find someone great or just getting a bunch of like dud inquiries, or Facebook groups or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a formula to it, right? So like, let's take a job board. One of the things we found is before you post on a job board, there's 2 audits that you want to do. One of them we call is a competitor audit, and the other is an honest employee audit. So if I can understand what competitors are doing, and a competitor could be in a big city 200 miles away. But if I look at what are all of the companies out there that are big and hiring successfully, what are they offering? What are they putting in their job posting? What are the incentives? I can start to see patterns and trends and I can bring those to my local workforce. Like, for example, we have some clients that'll do like 4 10-hour days. We have some that'll do, they're leveraging the fact that all of their jobs are very unique or different, or the fact that they don't travel further than 30 or 40 minutes. Like, we call the exercise, would you work for you? And it's like, what are the reasons why somebody might want to come work for you? And one of the ways you can figure that out is by interviewing some of the people that have been in your company the longest. So it's always fascinating when we do this for companies. We'll ask them, we'll say, what makes you great? And first, they have to think about it because they don't know it offhand. Then they go, well, we do this or we do that. Very few of them have those things on the actual job board, right? But even fewer, I'll ask the same question to everybody. Who's the longest tenured person you have at your company? Oh, it's Michael. He's been here 15 years. Or it's, Jane. She's been here 9 years. Okay. Why is Jane showing up every day? What does Jane love about your company? And is what Jane loves the same thing as what you just told me? In doing this literally hundreds of times, we've found that what Jane loves is not what the company thinks Jane loves, right? And so you expose these things that make a company unique, and then you're able to put those on the job description. Not to mention, if you have a career video, a short 90-second to about a minute, about 2 minute long video that showcases you, it's like, compare that job description and job posting to just a standard like top pay. This is the position, the 5 things we want from you. It's night and day, and so you're going to get a much higher application rate.
Awesome. Doing things that are a little bit different, I'm guessing, is the key here. Like, there's so much noise out there in the recruitment space. There's so many people competing for the team members that you're trying to get as well. If you're not, it's marketing 101, right? If you're saying the same shit, no one's going to hear.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think, and a lot of the best marketers make great recruiters because they understand the fundamentals, right? Like speed to lead. When we do this for clients, we guarantee that we're going to respond to the candidate within three to 5 minutes, right? Most companies are like, how fast are you responding to your applicants? They're like, well, sometimes it's 10 minutes or 15. I'm like, what about the other times? They're like, well, it might be a couple hours. I'm like, well, what do you think they're doing after they don't hear back? They're going to line up 4 or 5 interviews, and then they're going to stop for a little bit, see how they go. So you want to be the first interview in a perfect world, the dream company. But there's technology now, like words like geofencing, huge, the ability to put an invisible fence around a competitor or a supplier. And if they pull out their mobile device and they're on it, seeing your hiring ads. I mean, there's so many tools right now. And
on like social media or something, or like,
well, so geofencing runs like it's like almost like a Facebook ads platform. It's its own user interface, and basically you can position and place ads through, it's geo targeted. So it's like, if I cross through this building and walk in and I'm on my phone or my tablet or my desktop, I will see, I can run display ads. And so if you knew,
on what platform though? Or just on Google?
No, so there's like in the US there's a bunch of them. Like there's Ground Truth and there's a few others. But yeah, the big thing is making sure that whoever's running the ads knows how to do it specifically for hiring, because it's not the same. A lot of people use it in the event space. Like they'll geofence a big trade show with like, maybe they didn't sponsor the event, but they want everyone to see their product, so they'll geofence it and blast product ads. Kind of a shortcut. It's where one of the ways in which I think the technology grew quickly, but we've seen great success in the hiring side using it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's an interesting evolution for sure. Like this whole, I mean, I don't even know if we have geofencing in Australia, but like that's such a cool idea. I'm guessing though it only really works if you're logged into the platform though, right? Like
just internet. So it's anything browsing on your phone. It's the same way you'd see like a display ad, but I mean, there's a lot of old school things. So like we have another example that works really well is really targeted incentives. So we took a company when we were building out the course and we were doing a lot of beta testing on how to make things really digestible. I took a company that I knew. Two companies were very similar. I went to one of them, and I convinced the owner. I said, "We're going to offer everyone $500 for anybody that they refer." Right. And I said, I'll pay out of pocket. I said, I want to run an experiment. So we brought everyone together. It was generic. It was like $500. People were excited. We got, I think, one or two hires from that. My friend ended up not taking my money. He's like, "Man, I'm so happy." He's like, "Don't pay." He's like, "I'll pay." He just got me two hires. But on the other company, similar size, what we did is we sat one on one with each person for about 5 or 10 minutes. We brought up the program. We said, "Hey, we want to hire and grow and find more people like you." And so we personalized each incentive. So we knew that, this person really loves to travel with his wife. So we say, "Hey, we're doing a $500 weekend getaway with you and your wife if you find somebody." Then the next person is a sports fan. We sit them down. We're like, "Hey, if you happen to find somebody, we're going to get you great seats to this sports team." Next one really enjoyed, whiskey. We're like, "Hey, we're going to get you to this whiskey tasting event if you find somebody." So we did that experiment over 10 times. What we found was almost a 4x in the number of applicants and people brought in, because we did two things. Number one, we deputized or incentivized the current team, which everyone should do, but then we took it a step further and we made it personal to what they wanted. So now they're doing it for the big payoff that is for them. So that's kind of the theme when it comes to hiring. Is it's like half the stuff, if you just do it, you're going to get a good result. But then if you do it at the highest level and you really understand the psychology behind it, you're going to blow everybody else out of the water.
How do you address the lack of talent in the overall pool? Like I see this incentive model, working great for, people that have, friends and colleagues and things like that might be within a similar industry to them or profession or whatever it is. But then, if you're like looking for candidates in the current climate where there isn't a lot of them in some industries, like how do you address that?
Well, we get this question all the time. They're like, "Really, is there people out there?" Like when we do this for people, we have a 60-day money back guarantee, and people think we're crazy. They're like, "Can you really do this in this small town in the Midwest or in this big city, whatever it may be?" And one of the things we've done is we look at the number of licensed contractors in that area, right? So I can take a small town and I can show somebody, "Look, you have just in your small town, you have 73 licensed contractors that are actively doing what you're doing." So it's at some point at scale, you'll find that you might run into this. We've never seen it. Like one of the things we've done, we did this with somebody who had an issue. They were really struggling to find people. I said, "All right." So we built out a strategy for them. Here, we said we took the list of all the newly licensed contractors that year that fit the criteria. This was a concrete contractor. So basically, these are people who are year one out on their own. I said, "We're going to run a campaign. We're going to call them after the end of the year, after they've paid taxes. We're going to call all of these people and just see if they're open to a conversation about joining a company." He hired two people. Do you want to know why he hired two people? Because they had paid their taxes. Their wives, both of them exactly the same. They were pissed. They went, "Man, by the time I paid my taxes, by the time I looked at how many hours I worked, and my wife was, complaining the whole time, 'You've never
There's
worked
nothing
this
left.
much. You're never home.'" They said, "Screw it. I just want to go work for somebody." Now, those are two people that were prime candidates. They were qualified. They had their own licenses and they did really well. But it was like, because we knew the strategy, we knew where to find them. So you're right. At some point, all of these tricks won't work. But the good news is hardly anybody's even doing it remotely close to what we're talking about. So the runway you have is massive.
So then how does the conversation look, I suppose, beyond recruitment, onboarding, success journey, retention, etc.?
Well, it's pretty simple. So, you get to the lead quickly. So you have a bunch of ways to find candidates, right? 37 is what we have right now. It's actually more than that. But you fill your pipeline and then you quickly sort and sift and screen, right? Good ones go right to the top, mid-level ones. And so you've got the informal and formal interview. Informal is just asking a few basic questions, getting to them quickly. Formal interview is a little longer. You got to have a skills assessment. So I don't care if it's a COO, office manager, anybody that's hands-on, you need a skills assessment. They need to come to your yard, your office. If you don't have that, they need to come to a job site, one that's preferably quiet. Like we got a client and he's like, I'm too small. I'm a plumber with, 2 techs. I was like, great. Have them come on your job site from the hours of 4 to 6 p.m. and just sweat and bend pipe in the back of your truck for 2 hours. Like you got to see if they show up, if they know what they're doing. But once you have that skills assessment and you know how to hire, the best way to hire is like you're closing a sales deal, right? So you bring them into your office, you show them the offer letter, you go over everything, and you say, "How's this sound?" "Oh, it sounds good." Ideally, they've already talked to their husband or wife beforehand, right? You've sent them the terms bulleted out, not the formal offer letter, so they can talk to their family or whatever. They come to you, and you ask them at the end of it. You say, "Great, this sounds so good. All right, so you're going to join the team?" They say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just let me get this home." You shake their hand and you stop, and you say, "Is there any reason that you might change your mind?" And you pause while you have their hand shaking. And you wait. If there is something that you might lose out on this hiring deal, you're going to know in that moment. I've done this 40 times, and I've literally handled objections. They'll pause and they'll be like, "No," and I'm like, "Is there anything else that you want to talk about?" And then it opens up another round of like, "Oh, well, I'm nervous about this, or this wasn't clear." So let's say you've closed that deal. Well, then the next thing you want to do is you want to onboard them well. And there's a bunch of ways to do this, but the most important thing is communicate early and communicate often. The easiest framework to adopt is they come in, some people do the buddy system, some people, but in essence, what they got to have is access to all of their like logins, email, all of that stuff. They need to have a good baseline for onboarding. But if you schedule a check-in the first 2 weeks, then the first 30 days, and then after that, 3 months, 2 weeks, 30 days, 3 months. That's 3 check-ins in the span of almost 4 months. Make all of them eligible for a raise. You will inevitably find that you're going to get ahead of almost every shortcoming in the company that you might have. So instead
Wow.
of
Do you give
having
them a rate? So 2 weeks, 30 days, 3 months, all eligible for a raise.
all eligible for a raise, because what happens is you're motivating them. You're like, we've had people in my company, it was upwards of 70% of people would get a raise at all of these junctures. Now they wouldn't be huge, but it would be like, because we would set out and we'd be like, "Hey, these are the things you know how to do now. When you learn these things and demonstrate this, your pay will increase." And you'd find people out of the gate like taking class. We had somebody who like didn't know how to use. They were real entry level. They didn't know how to use a mortar mixer. Didn't know how to use any of the cutoff saws. He took classes. Like he literally within the first 2 weeks like started taking classes at tool yards to learn this stuff. Comes back after 2 weeks, he's like, "I can do these 6 things." And we're like, "All right, well, you get a raise," and then did it again in 30 days. But I mean, when you have that kind of culture where somebody walks in, they know how to get an A, they know that they've got plenty of opportunities for communication, and you've given somebody a raise 3 times in 4 months, it's a game changer. Family, wives, husbands, kids, like it creates a different, but you have to clearly define the goals and the outcomes. It has to be measurable. It's not like, "Oh yeah, you had a good few days. Here's a quarter." It needs to be like, "Hey, this is our pay plan." And that's got to be in place.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Like because we run a scorecard system within the business, and it's amazing how many people come to us asking for pay rises when they haven't achieved anything on the scorecard, or maybe they have and the department's been failing, or whatever it might be. And it's just like that conversation, making sure they understand that dynamic, that there's a business there, as well. It's not just like an individual.
100%.
Mm.
And then it's great communication. It's finding things that are unique. So one of the things we do that we've rolled out across the country is we have a spinning wheel. So basically, it's a wheel, and on the wheel are different prizes. And there's stuff. Every company does it differently, but like it could be $100 gift card for work boots. It could be a free car wash. We had one in my company. It was a $2 an hour raise for a year. It was this real skinny line, right? And so we got it was like 30 different prizes, I think. And so anytime somebody did something good, right? Management, ownership didn't matter. We have these company branded poker chips, and so we hand them out. If a team stayed late, if they got a good review, we built out the criteria. If on the sales team, like if they hit quota, like whatever it was, all these different things. And then once a month, we do a team. Either we do a breakfast or we do like a late lunch. So they either start late or finish early, and we do a whole company get together once a month. and we redeem these poker chips. So we bring the wheel out, and it was so interesting because one of the prizes when we first did this wheel, this was like 5 years ago, when we spaced it all out, we had one extra space, and we had already calculated the cost of all of these and whatnot. So I was like, I don't want monetary because it's going to mess up my cash flow projections. So I said something cheap that we can do. And one of the guys was like, give away a rubber chicken. So I was like, okay, so one of these things you can win is a rubber chicken. I went to one of these events. It was about 6 months later. We still had the $2 an hour raise that was on there. I had 9 of my 10 foremen, there's like 55, 60 people in the field at my company, right? And then the rest of the company too. And there's like all these rubber chickens, they're squeezing them, and they're going. And the guy who's he's one of the only guys in the field who doesn't have one. He slams this thing down. He's like, rubber chicken, and he goes to spin this thing. And in that moment, I was like, wow, it's so interesting. I got a $250 Airbnb gift card. I got a $200 work boot gift card. $2. I'm like, and this guy wants a $2 rubber chicken. And so it reminded me how important fun is in construction. Now, everybody's fun is different. Maybe the rubber chicken doesn't work for you. I don't know. But it was interesting in that moment to go, shoot, like when you do have the right people, the right culture, and they're paid well, like the last piece is fun. Like what makes it working there truly fun. And so it was really interesting. When I sat back and watched, I was like, wow, people say, oh, it's all about the money, or, you got to pay more. It's like, I mean, literally $2 an hour raise. I think that got spun twice. Cost me like $2,000 or whatever the math is. Every time I'm clenching my, I'm clenching my butt every time they spin the wheel. I'm like, so.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's the culture side of it. It's like, what's your culture? And, and on the back of that, I would say, how are you making things fun?
Yeah, man, it's certainly, like even within my own business, I found lately it's been such like a stressful, busy period where there's just that engagement, that culture has just dropped. I mean, I've dropped it totally, but like it's something that's going to try and get back.
Yeah, it's not easy. And that's why the wheel for us, like as I was coming more out of the company, we built this as a system that just makes it so you have to have fun. Like once a month, everyone's getting together. Doesn't matter if the month's great, if it's hard, if it's not. And we're giving out the poker chips. Like, and we have our criteria, and it's just, I mean, it doesn't cease to amaze me. These barbecues and stuff grew to like the families, their wives, their husbands, their kids, their aunts, their uncle. Like now it's this huge thing. And then in front of all of that, they're celebrating. And here's what else is interesting. I got a few people who don't get any spins, and when they're there with their significant other, and they go, "Hey, why aren't you up there?" That lasts only usually 1 month, and then magically they start to do some standout stuff. It's
There
like
you go.
I don't think anybody, like you're an outsider if you're not getting at least one or two spins, and so the wife and the husband's like looking like, "Hey, when's your turn?" And he's going, "I didn't get any." It's like, hey,
Gamify, shame.
yeah.
That's hilarious. That's so good. And so go back to a little bit to the I know you mentioned before, like making sure that people understand what they're accountable for, what their KPIs are. Like how do you set those up, define those, and at what stage in the process, and how do you evolve them?
I was never. This was an area of weakness for me. This cost the. I'm glad you asked this because this is where I was weak for a while. Um, for me, it was about. It started off slow. It was literally just being like, what are the things that I can measure that have to get done? And we started very crude. And then when I started looking at like Al's stuff, for example, or there's a bunch of great books on this, then things became more sophisticated. But it's really what you're trying to do is you're trying to align goals. And so we started very crude. It was like, we want jobs to be finished on time or ahead of schedule. We don't want tools lost or broken. Like I literally just had to write down the things that pissed me off. Like anything that pissed me off that I would get news of, I'm like, these are the things that end up on the scorecard in one form or another. And so we started, we just started with it was like the Matt pissed off list. It was like, what are all the things that like, I'm like, what the heck? Why did this happen again? Like, and those were the things and then also the things that made me really proud. So I looked at like, what are the things that in a month I go, wow, the team did that. And I went, how do I get more of these? And how do I get less of these? and that was it. I mean, that was the birth of
So a Matt pissed off list and a Matt not pissed off
pretty
list.
much.
Simple.
That was that was the early days. That was how it really kind of just boiled down.
Yeah, interesting. So I know that's like when it's so easy to, well, for team members to get caught up doing things that aren't like what they should be doing, and they justify it because they're busy, but it's like, okay, but this is the outcome you're responsible for and you're not doing it. All that other stuff, cool, but not at the cost of what's important.
Yeah, and as we grew, and there were more and more layers of communication, more and more reports, more and more spreadsheets. Like as we became like a real business, those scorecards had to evolve to become much more sophisticated because it was like you didn't have the oversight, the management, the kind of sloppy, just like you were going to the job or, like that stuff existed when we were a certain size. And then when we really started tracking everything well, it was like, wait a minute, like we don't need to be stopping in on these job sites from a site super perspective, but we do need to do a better job of keeping our foremen accountable.
Yeah, totally. And is that all tracked through technology typically for you guys? I suppose that's really important as long as it's tracked.
Yeah, we have a dashboard and I have certain things that I look at. So for me, it's like, I kind of have like the 4 hour business work week where it's like I listen to my 2 production meetings, they're recorded. I get a financial report on, how much work we did, billable. I like tracking things and it's very abnormal, but I do things weekly. So it's like people hate it, but I do like, I want to know weekly. I'm like, how much this week did we bill? How much this week did we, even though I know um, it's not perfectly aggregated because of the short duration. Like I'm the type of person, if it's important to me, like we my team thought I was crazy to do stuff weekly. I started daily, knowing that I wanted to get weekly. I was like, we're gonna track how much we do daily. Like I want to know this and this daily. And then they were like, oh, this is impossible. I was like, all right, let's just track it once a week. They were like, okay, we can do that. And so that's how I got to the weekly stuff. But yeah, all those optics are super important.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the thing that most business owners don't do enough is tracking those metrics because if you let it go too long, inevitably you find yourself in a situation where you like it's too hard to reel it back in. It's too hard to make the change. Like if it's a weekly and if it's all bi-weekly or whatever, but then like if something obvious is tripping up here, you can kind of reposition and get it fixed. But if it's months, quarters, yearly, forget it.
No. We like a lot of the stuff I get is daily. Like, what's my answer rate? What's my booking rate? What's on the marketing side? Like, what are we spending? I have 2 marketing meetings a week. Like, all that stuff is. We try and manage there's so much freedom in data. Like that fear
Totally.
that you have, like, and anybody listening, like, that kind of like that high low, like, oh shoot, this happened, and then, oh no, that happened, like I can't tell you when it came time to make big investments in the business, how comfortable I felt knowing I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing on the marketing side. This is our cost per customer. This is our booking rate. This is our close rate. This is how much we're doing in billable. This is our backlog of work. Like when I could see all that, I was like, oh, of course it makes sense to, upgrade the office or to do this or, to take a certain amount of money and just trial it in marketing campaigns. Like that confidence came from that rather than like this, I think it'll work. And then, you're kind of like running around, which I did for years. I'm so guilty of that. I had no business background. So I wasn't like I was the good enough guy for like so many years. I'm like, is the phone being answered? Like I would literally walk up to my team like, hey, we answered all the calls today. Like, oh yeah, Matt, we're good. I'm like, all right, cool. Like it just made me feel good to do that.
How do you go addressing the conversation around, and do you do it this way where you say to your team members like, this is what I want to track. I don't care how you report it to me. Just give me the report. Or do you have a structure for them to follow?
So the team has structure. I'm a what guy. I'm not a how guy. And I've learned this. And
Right.
like for a lot of people listening, I don't know, you might be that same person. Like I'm very good at knowing. I'm like, these are the things that I need to know, but how to get there,
Yeah.
like I was the worst person for that. I'd be like, well, you could do it this way or you could do it that way. And like my ops manager would be like, hey Matt, why don't you go get a coffee? We'll figure this thing out and like we'll present it and see if you like it. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I think finding somebody, the what versus the how, I think is a really big thing because I I find that like we end up on one camp or the other. Like we're really good at like understanding how to do something, or we're really good at the high level what of like I'm trying to do this and then I'm trying to do that, and they can see it. And figuring out which one you are and then building out a relationship with somebody who fills the other side of it, honestly, was one of the biggest cheat codes for me in business.
Yeah, cool. So, Maddie, I suppose all in all, this process, essentially what I'm getting is it's a process. It's not something you can just wake up one morning and rub two sticks together and hope that it plays out for you. You've got to put the time in, you've got to put the effort in, it needs a structure. And luckily, for the listeners out there, you've got that structure and you've got it documented in a course, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Where can people get hold of that?
On the website, the Contractor Consultants,
Okay.
plural.
Got it. All right, sweet. We'll post some links to that over in the show notes and things like that. Man, it's been a very good conversation, honestly. There's so many things there I pulled out of this. I want to go and implement myself. So thank you once again for coming along and sharing your expertise.
Yeah, I mean, you teased it out of me. You did the hard part.
Yeah, I guess years of school of hard knocks. But if you listeners and viewers out there, if you've got any questions or anything that you think we haven't answered properly or we need to address further, let us know. I'll get I'm sure if I ask Matt to come back on the show, you'll be able to jump into some of these things a bit more. So, Maddie, thanks once again, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all right. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please, while you're here, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Now, listen, if you are a trade-based business and you work in projects, roofing, bathrooms, kitchen renovations, home renovations, solar installations, that kind of thing, we would love to be able to showcase you as our next success case. Insane return on ad spend over here. We're talking 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 13,000% return on ad spend week in, week out with some of our clients. And we would love to put you in that picture. So please head across to tradie.wiki/YT for YouTube. Tradie.wiki/YT for YouTube. I look forward to chatting to you soon. Enjoy the next episode and thank you for all your support.